Welcome back to the channel, my brothers. My name's Andy R and this is the Brotherhood of Men. Today I want to talk about why did women feel so entitled, so self-centered, so selfish, almost bordering on narcissism, that they could do anything they liked without consequences. I'm going to explain all of that in this video. I think it's going to be a long video, so I'd like you to stay to the end. A lot of information in there, a lot of facts and statistics, so let's get into the video. So why do women feel that they can act in such a narcissistic, almost narcissistic way? The reason I say almost is because narcissism is a psychological, clinical definition. And I'm neither a psychologist nor can I give a clinical definition. But when you see the behaviour of a lot of women nowadays, especially modern women, the younger women, it's very hard not to come to the conclusion that it is narcissism. They act in a self-centered way, a selfish way, a me-first way. They act as though their whole demeanour, doesn't matter what they do, no matter how abhorrent it is, has no consequences. So how did we get to this sorry state? Well, the fact of the matter is it's not happened overnight. These things do not happen overnight. It takes time and it takes effort. Let's go back roughly 200 plus years ago to Victorian times. Homosexuality was outlawed for men. It was never outlawed for women. In fact, Queen Victoria herself said there was no such thing, which makes me wonder about Queen Victoria. So men could not have homosexual relationships. It was a criminal offence, jailable, which is a little bit of a strange idea. You, like men, I'm going to lock you in a prison full of men. Okay. Now, I have no dog in this fight. I'm just using it as an example where things started to go wrong. Because since that time, more and more laws have been passed to protect women, but not to protect men. They've been passed in actual fact to the detriment of men. So let's move quite a bit more forward, shall we? The suffragettes and suffragists were arguing for women to get the vote. This was in direct conflict to the vast majority of women at that time. The vast majority of women at that time, when polled, said they did not want the vote. But we've been led through a lot of propaganda to believe that all women at that time wanted the vote. No, it was a very, very tiny percentage of the female population at that time. And they were mainly the suffragists and the suffragettes. They're two different types. But they managed to make so much noise, catch the attention of politicians who started to worry that in the end a vote was brought that women got the vote. Not a public vote, a vote in the House of Commons. A bill was brought forward to give women the vote. So why didn't women want the vote? Why did the vast majority of women at that time not want the responsibility of a vote? For the simple reason that men didn't always have the vote. It was a very small percentage of men, and then over time more and more men were allowed to get the vote. At the beginning it was only those who were the peers of the realm. Then it became those who were landownered. Then it became those who had important positions, guild members. And then that grew to be all men, but it came with a great deal of responsibility. You see, governments over the years realised they could not ask men to lay down their lives in defence of the realm without giving them the vote. In other words, if you're going to ask me to fight your wars, the very least you can do is allow me to put my vote on a piece of paper so that I have some say in those in government who may send me to war. And this is what women didn't want. They knew that men got the vote because they fought the wars, they defended the land, and they did not want to have to be called up to draft, called up to fight in wars. They feared that, so the vast majority of women at that time all turned round and said, we don't want the vote, because the consequences of that vote and the obligations that come with that right are too high for us. We're not built for it. And of course, because they said we're not built for it, the government went, oh, the poor ladies, we can't ask them to fight, and gave them the vote without asking for the responsibility that went with it. Again, in direct conflict to what men were exposed to give. In fact, in the United States, to this day, there is the fact that a boy, when he turns 18, has to sign to become a legal citizen that he will answer a call to draft, like happened in the Vietnam War, to become a full citizen of the United States. Yet women, all they had to do is reach the age of 18, and they were given all the same rights but without the consequences. And this is where the rot starts. It starts right here, by giving women something without the consequences. So it's very difficult for a woman then to turn around and say, well, why shouldn't I behave abhorrently? Why shouldn't I behave badly? Why shouldn't I do really terrible things? Nobody's going to hold me accountable. So we get to where we are today. Now let's move forward a little bit further. After getting the vote without consequences, then it came down to a very sticky situation, which is again something people find very uncomfortable and usually have a view about, which is abortion. Now, again, women point to this, especially feminists, as one of their big wins. Getting the vote was a big win, but it was directly against the will of the vast majority of women. And the same with abortion. When polled, the vast majority of women at the time did not want legal abortions, because they knew intrinsically this was going to be a route to rack and ruin in the morality of women. You see, women used to be self-regulating. They used to be able to regulate their peers and themselves by saying, don't do this, the consequences are too great. In other words, don't sleep with a man randomly, because the consequences are you could get pregnant. And then you will be shunned by society because you're not married. Get married first and then have babies. The idea being a morality, a structure that's worked for thousands of years. But once it became available that women could indeed get an abortion without the consequences that went with that, so the abortion was safe, legal and rare. Well, yes, they're safe and legal, but they're very rarely rare. You see, that was turned around. That was how they managed to get that. But the consequences that came with it, you were basically giving women the right to commit murder. How could you not feel self-entitled if you're given that power? Be honest with yourself, men. If you were given the power that no consequences would come to your actions, no matter how violent, up to and including committing murder, it would be a very heady brew to turn down. At first, things are going to be okay, but it wouldn't take very long before you and my brothers out there would start going off the rails, because the more you get away with, the more entitled you feel. And again, this came against the specific wishes of the vast majority of women at the time. They did not want that right. But it came with no consequences other than you've just got rid of a potential baby. It's a fetus. So again, another law was passed that was directly in opposition to the vast majority of women and an even larger majority of men, because there was no reciprocal law for men. Women argued, my body, my choice. Well, I have no problem with that. That should be the mantra for everybody, male or female. But here's the thing, men were held accountable for this little piece of legislation, as well as the votes where you had to go to war if called upon. Again, men got the sticky end of the stick. Now, when I say men were held responsible for this one when it came to abortion, the fact of the matter is that other laws had to then be passed. So the law was, if a man got a woman pregnant, he was responsible for the financial upkeep of that child. Now, the woman was given the opportunity of not becoming a parent, but a man was never given a reciprocal right. He was automatically put upon to financially take care of any child she decided to have. He had no right in it. My body, my choice. Very nice for the women, but not very good for the men. You see, a reciprocal law should have been, if a woman decides to keep the child out of wedlock, or even, just that, out of wedlock, she has to be financially responsible for it. But the men were made financially responsible for it and were given no option to opt out. It wasn't even a question of, if you sign this piece of paper, handing over all rights or in contact or everything else to the woman because she decided to keep the baby that you didn't want, you will not be held responsible. You will not be held financially responsible. No, that was never happened. More laws were passed to then financially cripple a man who didn't ask to be a father, but the woman had the right to the choice of whether she became a parent or not. The man wasn't. So once again, another piece of legislation was passed that favoured women and punished men. And when I say punished, I actually do mean punished, because the whole weight of the state, the government, the law system and the military police was brought down upon a man who refused to pay. Now, he wasn't incarcerated because he refused to pay. He was incarcerated because he had contempt for the court. The court made a ruling that you will pay, and if you don't pay, you're in contempt of the court and therefore you will be jailed. So once again, a man was punished and had to face consequences for his actions. A woman was rewarded and had to face no consequences for her actions. Now you start to see a picture emerge. Now you start to see things a little bit more clearly. You start to realise that once you realise that you're not going to be punished for your actions, your lack of morality, for your bad behaviour, in fact, you're not only going to be not punished, you're actually going to be rewarded or defended. So now we move forward to all men are predators. Where did that come from? Men acting in a manly way, in a masculine way, is toxic. The attacks keep coming. And then women wonder why men really don't want to have anything to do with them. Started walking away from relationships, walking away from dealing with women and their nonsense. More and more men are becoming MGTOW, red pill, joining the manosphere. This channel is very much based on that, because we can see just how uneven the system has been set up against men. We can see there is no justice in the justice system. We can see that making a complaint against a woman will have us poo-pooed and laughed at as though it's something weak. Yet any woman who brings a complaint against a man is instantly believed. We know that the system is unfair. And we've known it's been unfair for a long time, but it's so ramped up now that women have become uncontrollable, have become immoral, have become narcissistic. But the worst part of this is when we created the internet. The internet was a game changer. Not at first, but as it grew and as it developed itself, apps and channels like YouTube, WhatsApp, OnlyFans, Instagram, Tinder and all the other types of dating apps are pretty much ran with women for men. And when I say with women for men, let's take Tinder for instance. Tinder was set up, and Instagram, where most of the users, as in those who view them, tend to be men, so 4 men. But most of those who get the most traction there tend to be women. They post themselves to validate themselves. They're asking for your attention. Again, risk-free, without any consequences. I will post a sexy picture of me in lingerie or a swimming costume on a beach, looking the best I possibly can, and the next day I expect it to be blown up with messages from very weak men saying, hello beautiful, hi gorgeous, I want to marry you, I want this, I want that. Validating all they've done is put a picture of themselves up. Minimum effort, maximum reward. It's a dopamine hit for them when they're getting all of that input back at themselves, telling them they are beautiful, telling themselves they're desirable, and telling themselves, hey, I will take you no matter what. Now, a little experiment was done a couple of years ago by a young man who decided he was going to see just how thirsty these women were for the chat, for a man. So he posted a very artistic picture, not of him, but of a friend of him who was a male model, very fit, 6-pack, done in black and white, him posing there, smiling at the camera, square jaw. He was one of the ideals that women are looking for. Yet his bio underneath was absolutely horrendous. It said in the bio he was unemployed. It said that he was a user. It said that he was facing charges for trying to get with a woman who wasn't yet of legal age. And he was facing those charges. He put lots and lots of bad stuff in the bio just to see if women read the bio or forgave the bio just because he looked really good. And this guy did look good. After all, he was a male model. He should look good. But he was super fit, super buff. He looked great. Artistic photo. Straight the way of it being posted, he was getting hit after hit after hit from women who were quite attractive themselves, saying, are you in my area? Can we hook up tonight? Hey, can I take you out? I've noticed you've got no job. Let me take you. Thirsting after this man because he was in the top 25% of men. And all women want those men. So they were completely ignoring all of the bad stuff that was in the bio about he's a serial cheater, he's unemployed, he's nearly broke, he's facing criminal charges for something horrendous. On and on and on his bio went about how bad he was, and women were writing back going, lol, I'll fix you, hey, I can look after you, I've got a place you can stay. They were thirsting after this guy. And he didn't know what kind of response he was going to get. It was a social experiment on his part to see if women would forgive all of the bad stuff just because he looked good, which told a lot about women, is they expected men to overlook anything that was bad about them just because they looked average or just above. So when you start looking at all of these pieces of the jigsaw sitting together, I think you have to come to the conclusion that it would be very difficult to argue against women not feeling entitled, not feeling slightly narcissistic, not feeling selfish and self-centered, feeling that they are going to be forgiven everything they do, especially when they're given rights without any responsibilities like men do. Men have always known that it's a grind. Men know that they have to achieve. Many times I've said on this channel, men are the prize, but you have to make yourself the prize. And men know the only way to do that is to achieve things. Women think they're the prize because of things like Instagram and OnlyFans and Snapchat and Tinder and all of those dating apps where they are getting validation for doing nothing. But also the criminal courts, the police system, the governments are passing laws to favour women at the detriment of men, and have been doing for a long time, as I explained all the way up to this point. So you can't really although it's hard for me to say this, you can't really blame women for being this way when we men haven't stopped them being this way and they no longer self-regulate. So a woman can go out, have a high body count, she can sleep around, she can treat herself terribly, then take a photo of herself looking half decent and she's a 4 or a 5, she's average at very best, and get all of this validation from simpy men who, I'm sorry, I've just got no backbone, I've just got no testosterone in their system. They are so thirsty, and the reason they are so thirsty is because they keep getting overlooked. They were brought up to say, you treat women right, you treat them with respect, you look after them, you protect them. Well, it's got to the point now where men do not want to do these things for women without some sort of reward. In other words, yes, I will give you my time, but I want from you what I want from you. Are you prepared to give it? And more women are saying, no, I won't give you that, but you still need to give me all of your time, your effort, give me rewards financially, etc. Well, then it just becomes well, there's no easy way to say this. It just becomes an exchange of goods. And we know what that's called. When a woman gives her your body for something materialistic, in other words, a meal, money, a new handbag, whatever it might be, that becomes a financial exchange. And a woman who does that, well, we know what the word is for women who do that. But then again, women are still thinking that they can get away with this and not have to give anything in return. But why wouldn't they? The legal system's on their behalf. The state defends them. Social media, films, the internet, etc. They all defend these women. Me criticising them is actually an anathema, because women believe nowadays, quite literally believe, they can get away with anything. This is why you see women walk up to men and attack them physically, and they expect no retaliation. And when it is retaliated against them, it's the man who's looked to see as the baddie, as the one who's done something wrong, when the build up to all of that incident was totally down to the woman. So why wouldn't women start to feel self-centered, selfish, narcissistic, entitled, when nobody's holding them to account? Well, the funny thing is that more and more men are holding them to account by not engaging with them. This is why you see TikToks, why you see Instagram stories, why you see videos on YouTube, why you see lots of women coming on these platforms saying, where have all the good men gone? Well, I'll tell you, they're with good women. Because there are good women out there. Doesn't matter how much I vilify, there are good women out there. It's just that men have to search so much harder to find them. And the older a woman gets, the less likely she's going to be one of those good women. So, if you haven't already subscribed to this channel, please hit the subscribe button. Don't forget to hit the bell notification, and that way you won't miss out on great content. Also, give the video a like. It does help the channel, as does your comments, and I love reading your comments because the insight of my brothers out there is breathtaking. You are on the button, you know what you're talking about. So tell me, do you agree with what I've said? Is any of what I've said new information to you? Probably not, because you're a pretty switched on bunch of guys. Well, you'd have to be, you join this channel. Anyway, I'm going for a cup of tea now, but I believe that I've covered a lot of the reasons why women feel so entitled. It's because they've had everything given to them, no consequences, rights without consequences, unlike a man who only gets his rights if he has to face the consequences, if he has to face the laws that say we will give you this right, but you have to give something up in return, whereas women were never told to do that. So I'm going for a cup of tea because, well, I think I've earned one. You, my brothers out there, You take care of yourself, because if you don't, who will? And I'll talk to you soon. Bye now.